WCW nWo Superbrawl took place on the 22nd of February 1998 in the Cow Palace in San Francisco. 12,500 fans showed up for the event, and a very respectable 415,000 fans bought the show on pay-per-view. Hollywood Hogan vs Sting is our main event, and fans wanted to see an end to all the World Championship controversy that began at Starrcade 1997. We're also going to see Lex Luger vs Randy Savage, DDP vs Chris Benoit for the US Championship, and we've also got 2 TV title matches taking place at this event. So let's get started, and let's see if Superbrawl was better than the WWF's No Way Out of Texas event that aired a week prior. First up, we have Booker T versus TV champion Rick Martel. Perry Saturn's going to face the winner of this match immediately afterwards, so it's 2 back-to-back television championship matches. Martel defeated Booker T on Nitro to win the TV title earlier in the week, but Saturn also defeated Martel earlier in the night. Perry was the #1 contender heading into Superbrawl, but JJ Dillon decided to give Booker T another chance to reclaim his title by booking 2 TV title matches for the pay-per-view. Quick side note before we begin, I always liked how WCW presented these mid to late 90s pay-per-views at the Cow Palace. The long screens at the entranceway look great, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned that in a previous video. Martel, who turned heel during his last match against Booker T on Nitro, extends his hand at the opening bell, but Booker's not going to fall for it. The challenger ducks a sneak attack, Martel gets back body dropped, and then he gets clotheslined out of the ring. We see Saturn and Raven arriving as the match continues in the ring. Booker brings it down to the mat with an armbar, Martel breaks out, and Booker gets punished in the corner. The champ isn't able to maintain advantage though as Booker lands a spinning back kick. Booker then performs a knee drop before locking in the armbar again. 3 strikes and you're out, Mr. T. Martel gets to his feet and he tries to roll Booker up, but he takes a super kick right to the jaw. And then, god damn it,
Booker T armbar.
If Booker T wins, he has to wrestle again, so he better keep these armbars to a minimum. The 2 get up, Martel gets whipped to the corner, Booker then pulls off a big hip toss, and this is the moment where Martel gets injured. He suffers a torn ligament when his knee smacks the middle rope, and fair play man, he gets right back up and he continues the match. It was reported that an audible was called here and the finish of the match was changed too. Apparently Martel was going to retain, but the finish was changed so Booker could win. Take that with a grain of salt, but I do remember hearing that from more than one source. The match goes to the outside and Booker takes a few double axe handles to the back. When the 2 get in the ring, Martel continues to work over the back and he even runs into the corner to attack Booker, but the challenger comes back with a sidewalk slam. Martel then says fuck it and he power slams Booker. That must have hurt. We see Martel's spinebuster, we see the Quebec crab. Booker T makes it to the ropes and it's absolutely amazing that Martel's able to continue here. Booker counters a crossbody but he's unable to secure the victory. He goes down after a hard clothesline, but he replies with a jumping forearm. Booker then performs a scissors kick, he puts Martel down with a spine buster. Rick does manage to avoid a top rope crossbody, but Booker was ready for Rick's double axe handle and we see a great looking Harlem sidekick. Booker T wins and Booker T becomes the TV champion. Rick Martel does come back later in the year, though again his run's cut short. I'll cover this soon on Reliving the War. Booker T now has to face Perry Saturn, and Saturn instantly applies the rings of Saturn. The match hasn't officially begun, but the referee begins a 5 count when Booker makes it to the ropes. The match then begins with Saturn trying to cover Booker T, but he's trying too hard and his positioning isn't right. Booker's surviving due to Saturn's mistakes really. Booker gets choked on the middle rope and his corner sunset flip fails, so Saturn kicks him out of the ring and Booker gets thrown into the guardrail. Booker is able to repay the favour, but he's too tired from the Martel match and Saturn's able to recover way quicker than the new TV champ. Inside the ring, Saturn kicks Booker around a little and Booker takes a knee strike in the corner. The 2 then kick each other at the same time. Saturn again's able to recover quicker than Booker, but Booker manages to pull off a falling power slam and the crowd pops. The match goes to the outside again and Saturn pulls off a plancha and a Vader bomb from the middle rope. Saturn now thinks he's done enough to win the match, but Booker shows he's still in it with his running forearm smash. Just as Tony Schiavone says Booker's not getting his second wind, he completely misses a corner attack. We see a top rope suplex from Perry Saturn. He brings Booker to the top rope again, but the champ counters with a front suplex, and the crowd loved Booker's missile dropkick immediately afterwards. Saturn takes a spinning back kick. Just as Booker begins to build momentum though, he gets stopped again, this time with an exploder suplex from Perry Saturn. Saturn then performs an overhead belly to belly and a middle rope springboard moonsault. Saturn shows his frustration by beating Booker T up in the corner, and Booker again gets choked on the ropes. Booker loses his footing during a crossbody attempt and Saturn sends him to the mat, and Saturn slows it down a little with a chin lock. Mike Tenay updates the fans on Martel's torn ligament as Booker and Saturn collide into each other. Booker takes control with a spine buster and a scissors kick, although he does look exhausted at this point. He misses the Harlem Hangover, but Saturn decides not to apply the Rings of Saturn, and he instead tries a Northern Light suplex followed by a German suplex. His third suplex attempt fails. Booker T performs the Harlem sidekick, and Booker T retains his TV title. Two good matches to kick off Super Brawl, and Booker looked great in both matches. It's a shame about Martel's injury for sure, but Booker came out of these two matches looking good, and the crowd stayed with Booker throughout the first 25 minutes of Super Brawl.
Disco fever, yeah, 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 yeah.
The Parka isn't a fan of Disco Inferno. This one started basically because Disco got some payback for La Parka attacking him. After Disco hit La Parka with a chartbuster on Nitro, La Parka returned the favour with possibly the greatest ever Pearl Harbor in WCW history. This right here, this chair shot on Nitro, is all you need to know about the build-up, and it's still hilarious even to this very day. Disco isn't quick enough grabbing the chair, and La Parka delivers a power slam before doing some disco dancing of his own. Disco then performs a power slam and a few clotheslines, but Disco gets sent to the outside after a spinning wheel kick. Schiavone and Tenay wonder what kind of issues the NWO could be having backstage as the match continues. Remember, Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan aren't seeing eye to eye, but we'll get to all that later. Disco gets totally destroyed on the outside, and La Parka continues to dance as the Inferno tries to think of a way to get back in the match. He takes advantage when La Parka misses a splash, it goes to the outside again, and it's Disco who does a little damage this time at the guardrail. What's bizarre is the fact that he does the exact same things that La Parka did, and this was also happening earlier in the match with both guys performing power slams and both guys hitting clotheslines. Back in the ring, La Parka throws a few kicks and we see a chin lock. La Parka's cradle only gets a 2 count, and Mike Tenay says La Parka's maybe showboating a bit too much in this matchup, but I say it's great and he should keep doing it. There's chinlock number 2 from La Parka right there. Disco gets a chance to come back, but his back elbow doesn't keep La Parka down, and the chairman of WCW decides to kick Disco as hard as he can right in the forehead. La Parka's Hurricane Rana over the top rope doesn't look too hot, but his dive through the middle ropes totally makes up for it. The two get back inside where La Parka runs into 2 big boots from Disco Inferno, and this allows Disco to hit an inverted atomic drop followed by a clothesline and a swinging neckbreaker. Disco then accidentally hits the referee, and this gives La Parka a chance to take advantage and grab a chair. Unfortunately though, for La Parka, the plan backfires when Disco throws him on the chair from the top turnbuckle. Disco performs a chartbuster and Disco wins at Super Brawl VIII. Nothing really wrong with this match, but it's nothing special either. Very standard, and at times it felt very safe. I definitely recommend the 2 Booker T matches over this. Hulk Hogan wanted Nick Patrick to referee the main event, and Patrick wanted to referee the main event too. He feels, in his words, his character's being assassinated by WCW and JJ Dillon ever since Starrcade. Patrick was suspended on Nitro, but JJ Dillon has some good news for Nasty Nick. He's been reinstated. Patrick jumps for joy and he says he'll prove himself in tonight's main event, but Dillon says Nick won't be officiating Sting versus Hogan. Nick says if he's the head referee then he should be officiating the main event, but JJ tells him to fuck off and don't push your luck. Brad Armstrong versus Goldberg takes place next. This shouldn't take long. Billy Boy trips Brad up and he performs his rolling ankle lock. We then see Goldberg's gorilla press power slam, an overhead belly to belly suplex. Jesus Christ. Brad's answer to all this is his signature side Russian leg sweep, and Goldberg answers with a pump handle throw, I guess. I don't know, but it looked fucking awesome. Spear, jackhammer, Goldberg wins and the crowd lose their shit. On Thunder this week, Goldberg defeated Finlay. On Saturday night, he defeated Jerry Lynn with an F. So this victory over Brad Armstrong means Goldberg is now 38-0. And yeah, I made a correction. I gave Goldberg an extra victory last month erroneously, so I took a win away. I've double checked the numbers, so it's definitely 38-0. Juventud Guerrera wanted a shot at Chris Jericho's Cruiserweight title, but Chris wanted something in return, so Juvi agreed to put his mask on the line for a shot at the gold. The commentators talk about the importance of the mask and how it's part of Juvi's identity as the two lock up. Jericho's refused to take off his Cruiserweight Championship as the two go to work, and Juvi takes advantage by kicking the championship and Jericho hits the mat. Jericho hands the belt over and Juvi stays in control with a spinning wheel kick. Chris counters a sleeper with a hammerlock and Chris gets caught with a head scissor takedown. Juvi then throws his whole body at Jericho from a springboard attack, and he then performs a flying head scissors while Jericho's on the apron. Jericho goes down after a knife-edge chop and Juvi gets back inside the ropes. Chris then tries to get himself counted out by staying on the outside, but Juvi dashes back out and Chris is forced to continue the match. Juvi lands on his feet after a German suplex attempt and he gets dropped on the top rope immediately afterwards. It goes to the outside after a signature Chris Jericho springboard dropkick, and Jericho then sets up the steps as his own personal springboard. Juvi counters here and Chris gets dropped on the guardrail, and Chris's sell job afterwards is brilliant. He's grabbing his throat like he can't breathe. Back inside the ring, Chris catches a Juvi springboard attack and he performs a variation of the Juvi driver. Jericho's cocky pin doesn't secure him a victory, and Guerrera's victory roll doesn't end the match either. So Chris tries a vertical suplex followed by a backbreaker submission. Chris says that Juvi submitted here and he celebrates, but Mickey J tells Jericho to stop being a dick and continue the match. Juvi's diving Hurricane Rana gets countered with an electric chair drop and Chris thinks he's got it in the bag. He goes up to the top rope, but Juvi dropkicks him, and this leads to a springboard air Juvi to the outside. This match has been pretty good so far. Back inside the ring, it looks like it's all over. We see the Juvi driver, we see the 450 splash. The referee counts to 3, but Jericho has a hand on the bottom rope. Mickey J tells Guerrera the match hasn't ended, and Chris takes advantage with a chop block. Chris's opportunity to put Juvi away gets stopped with a DDT counter, and Guerrera also performs a springboard Hurricane Rana. Chris tries a lion tamer, Juvi counters with a pin attempt. Guerrera then goes for a Hurricane Rana, and this time Jericho applies that lion tamer and the match is over. Jericho retains and Guerrera must unmask. Jericho grabs a mic and he thanks all his Jerichoholics. He then tells Quasi Juice to take his mask off and he warns those with a weak heart to look away from the ring or leave the arena. You can hear Juventud telling someone at home that he loves them as he takes off the mask. Jericho thinks this is taking too long. He grabs the mask off Juvi's face and fans get their first look at Juventud Guerrera. The Luchadors didn't want to unmask in WCW. That's been made clear numerous times from numerous reports. Bischoff thought it made for good TV though, and essentially it was lose the mask or lose your job. This almost happened to Rey Mysterio at Halloween Havoc if you remember back, but it was Eddie Guerrero who protested on behalf of Rey. Looks like Juvi didn't have a choice. Davey Boy Smith defeated Steve Mongo McMichael in his first ever Nitro match. The rematch the following week ended in a brawl, and just this past week, Big Mongo decided to fight Davey because Bulldog was drinking coffee when a man was talking to him. Can't do shit when Big Mongo's around. So, the British Bulldog returns to WCW pay-per-view tonight and he's gonna face Big Steve. There was a time when this would have been prime reliving the war nonsense and something we could pick apart and have fun with, but I'm not sure what happened to Davey in those 2 months he was off TV after Montreal because he's really not the same at all. It kinda feels like he's given up, and all joking aside, it's kinda sad to see. Davy's back to wearing long tights here as he performs a drop toe hold, and Mongo gets schooled in the ways of the Bulldog. Mongo's tilt-a-whirl, twirly-whirly, big boy slams a sight to behold as he makes up moves on the spot, and Davy gets choked on the ropes before Steve lays in a few shots in the corner. There's a body slam from McMichael as Davy begins to turn purple. Mongo misses a leg drop, and Davy weakens the left leg before applying a sharpshooter, and boy does he fucking struggle to put that sharpshooter on. McMichael makes it to the bottom rope, he rakes Davy in the face, and Bulldog gets stomped on the mat. Bulldog then gets thrown out of the ring. We see an absolutely pathetic double axe handle from Steve, and his little kick afterwards is even more pathetic, and Bulldog gets whacked on the guardrail. People who turn Davy's colour here usually have problems with oxygen in their system. It's fucking crazy. Big Mongo punches the ring post, and Davy's gonna take advantage. The hand and wrist becomes a target outside and inside the ring. Mongo throws Davy into the turnbuckles, and oh shit, I don't know what's more tragic, that bump or the fact that Mongo can't perform his 3-point stance tackle because of his injured hand. Still, he gives it a go, but he's definitely been weakened. The stance lets him charge up his meter, and he just can't do it right now. But he says it's time to finish it. He goes for the tombstone, but Davy counters with an armbar, and he keys the lock, putting some extra strain on Mongo's wrist. The referee calls for the bell, Barney the dinosaur gets the victory, and Mongo acts like a big sore loser because the referee ended the bout. Two legends, two heroes of Reliving the War, and probably the final bosses if Reliving the War was ever a video game, but this match was fucking awful. DDP versus Chris Benoit for the US titles up next, and this storyline pretty much played out exclusively on WCW Thunder. DDP gave Benoit a title shot because he felt Benoit was deserving and because he hadn't been given any opportunities yet in WCW, but during that match, Raven's flock got involved and there wasn't a decisive winner. DDP then said he'd give Benoit another shot at Superbrawl, but to make sure there were no issues with Raven and the boys, he got Benoit and himself a tag team match against Raven and Saturn on the episode of Thunder just before the pay-per-view. In that match, DDP and Benoit were victorious, so they hope no one's gonna interfere in this US title match. The two trade wrist locks and Page tries to steal an early victory, but Benoit quickly kicks out. Side headlocks follow and DDP takes a swift arm drag. When Page replies with a gutbuster, you can hear boos in the arena, and when Page gets dropped on the top rope, you can hear fans cheer. Neither reaction was massive, by the way, but it's strange hearing fans favour someone else over DDP during this time in his career. Chris tries to lock in his crippler crossface, but DDP escapes. Mike Tenay says this is thanks to DDP ordering a best of Chris Benoit videotape and studying his opponent for tonight's match. I'm not even joking either. Benoit bridges during a test of strength and the two try to pin each other afterwards. Dallas performs a back suplex, Benoit dodges a diamond cutter, and he too goes to the outside. Chris Benoit, however, did not buy a best of DDP videotape. The match resets and things get a bit heated when the two square up to each other. They slap the shit out of each other before fighting on the canvas. Dallas pulls off a wheelbarrow suplex and the crowd can't help but cheer. Benoit pulls off a snapmare and he brings it down to the mat. A jawbreaker forces Benoit to release the hold, but this pisses Chris off and Dallas takes an ass whipping in the corner. Dallas tries to return the favour, but Chris's snap suplex puts DDP down and Benoit goes straight back to the submission. The two get up and Benoit applies a sleeper, and check it out, DDP gets out by just dumping Chris out of the ring. Chris thinks he's being smart by climbing up the turnbuckles, but DDP throws himself into the ropes and this stops Benoit in his tracks. Dallas performs a superplex, they take some time on the mat to get their shit together, and it's Benoit who wins the fist fight when the two get back to their feet. This match has been pretty good too. We see a top rope clothesline from Page and Dallas clears 3/4 of the ring here. Chris then surprises Page with another crippler crossface attempt, but Dallas is way too close to the ropes. DDP replies with a belly-to-belly suplex that only gets a 2 count, and the back and forth action continues with 3 German suplexes from Chris Benoit. The crowd boos when DDP kicks out at 2. The match comes to an end when Dallas performs a DDT. The two then go for a backslide, but Dallas decides to flip Benoit over and we see the diamond cutter. DDP retains his US title. Why this match isn't spoken about more, I don't know. I thought this was good and probably the match of the night so far. There's only been one slip up tonight, and that was Mongo Mongo versus Davey. But if you've been paying attention, you'll also notice that we haven't had a single nWo match yet at Super Brawl. The nWo are featured in our next 3 matches, so let's see if things go down the shitter or if Super Brawl continues to be a good show. Already though, I'm confident in saying that this event was better than WWF No Way Out of Texas. Next up is the fucking 500th Macho Man Randy Savage vs Lex Luger match to take place in WCW. This time, it's a no disqualification match. Much of the nWo's recent storyline centers around Macho. The madness has gone rogue and he's refusing to step in line and take orders from Hulk Hogan. He's attacked Eric Bischoff, he's had a match against Hogan on Nitro, and while he's still a member of the nWo, he's been told to fight his own battles until he realizes where he is in the pecking order. His feud with Luger here goes back to Starrcade, but Randy's rivalry with the Total Package is not what's important here. On Thunder, the nWo attacked both Randy and Lex Luger before the show went on the air, and later in the night, the nWo carried Randy to the ring while he wore a Sting mask. Sting and Lex Luger ended up running down to fight off the nWo, so things are a bit weird at the moment. Why the fuck Randy Savage is still part of the nWo though is anyone's guess. Luger's taped up due to that attack on Thunder, and immediately it causes him problems in the ring. He can't press slam the Macho Man, and Randy sees the tape ribs as a huge target. Randy lays in the boots and he drops Luger over the guardrail. Macho lays in another few kicks and he goes for a cover, but Luger kicks out at one, showing that he's got a lot more fight left in him. Randy spits on Luger before drilling his knee into Lex's back. Randy tries to cause further injury with a few shoulder charges in the corner, but Lex is able to cradle Macho and almost steal a victory before Randy goes straight back to the ribs. Mike Tenay calls this a one-dimensional attack. Randy Savage calls it working smart tonight, brother. Lex gets thrown out of the ring and we've got more attacks at the guardrails. Things get a little interesting at least when Lex runs into a cameraman and a few security guys, and it's fucking miserable that I found that the most interesting thing about this match so far. And hey, these are two legends, don't get me wrong, but this is nothing more than a Nitro match and they've done absolutely nothing so far. And on top of that, the match is nearly over. Luger takes a few shots in the audience and Macho tries to slap the referee too. Randy wants to attack a fan and hard-ass Doug Dillinger tells Randy to wise up. Luger gets thrown to the ring steps as the commentators wonder if Randy can get fined for touching a referee in a no disqualification match. Seriously, it's a heated debate. More guardrail shots, more shots to the ribs. It gets back in the ring where Randy performs a suplex and Lex starts no-selling. Lex performs a power slam, he signals for the rack and the crowd boos. Liz helps out the Macho Man a little by scratching Lex's face and the crowd loves it. The nWo hit the ring and both Luger and Savage fight the group off. Buff Bagwell stuns Savage though, and this gives Lex a chance to apply the torture rack. Hogan shows up and he tells the boys that's enough, and Hollywood lets his nWo teammate Randy Savage take a loss. Hogan says he's glad that Macho Man got beat, and he also says that Macho Man isn't part of the family. The Steiner Brothers have had their issues over the past month or so, but since beating the Outsiders for the tag team titles, it seems like they've sorted everything out. Rick and Scott sit atop the WCW tag team division, and tonight the Outsiders get their rematch for the gold. It was Scotty Steiner who caused these problems when he constantly refused to tag in Rick, and he seemed more concerned about having pose downs with Buff Bagwell. But the audience went crazy when Rick and Scott showed unity on Nitro, so let's see if they can overcome Kevin Nash and Scott Hall tonight at Super Brawl. It's survey time for the Cow Palace, and judging by the crowd's reaction to Luger vs Savage, I'd say it's one more for the good guys. Yeah, I thought so. The Steiner Brothers come down to the ring and Rick's gonna start the match off. Ever since Rick and Scott had their issues, Rick would begin matches just to make sure he got some ring time. So that plays in nicely to what's about to happen. Scott Hall throws his toothpick at Rick and he gets punched in the face. Hall almost knocks himself down when trying a shoulder block, and Rick finishes the job by performing a Steiner line. Rick then performs a belly to belly, Hall takes a few punches in the corner, and Rick pulls off a ridiculous overhead belly to belly before Nash runs in. The dog-faced gremlin takes care of Big Sexy, and Scotty comes in for the usual Steiner Brothers pose. This time though, Scotty decides to attack his own brother, and holy shit, the Steiner Brothers are gonna break up. The nWo fans in the Palace absolutely love it, but I'm sure many long-time fans felt betrayed as Scotty does the click hand gesture before hitting Rick with a double underhook slam, and Ted DiBiase gets taken out too. Scott confirms he's joined the nWo before going back to the apron, and now this should be an easy victory for the Outsiders. Hall covers Rick and Rick kicks out, so Hall brings Rick to the Outsiders corner and Scotty lets his brother get destroyed. Rick fights back though, and there is a moment when fans think he might just try and pull this off all on his own, but Big Kev whacks Rick on the apron and that's it over. Hall struggles at first to get Rick up for the Outsiders edge, but he eventually pulls off his finisher and the Outsiders become tag team champions once again. Scotty hands Hall and Nash their tag team belts. The commentators are absolutely beside themselves at what just happened, and fans are now going to see a new Scotty Steiner on WCW television that's a whole lot different from the one we knew. Not gonna lie, Big Papa Pump Scotty Steiner's pretty awesome and I'm looking forward to his singles run, but being a massive Steiner Brothers fan too, it kinda sucks that the tag team has now more or less come to an end. We'll have to wait a long time before seeing Rick and Scott team up again, but it does happen on WCW Nitro before the doors close. Not going to explain the whole Sting versus Hogan thing in detail because I'm sure you guys who follow the channel are sick of hearing about it. So here's the basic version. Starrcade 97 ended with Sting as world champion. Hogan complained about Bret Hart getting involved, so a rematch was booked for Nitro. The finish of that rematch was inconclusive, so JJ Dillon vacated the belt. He also suspended referee Nick Patrick for being a bit dodgy and untrustworthy. And so here we are. Again, Hogan's issues with Randy Savage have been at the forefront, but the cracks began to form in the nWo when Hogan lost the World Championship. Hogan needs the world title. Ruling the nWo as champion is his only purpose, but Sting also needs to bring the world title back to WCW, put an end to all this controversial bullshit, and begin his reign at the top of World Championship Wrestling. Also, Scott Hall was supposed to main event Superbrawl after winning the World War III Battle Royal. However, the controversy surrounding the world title meant that Scott's title shot would get put on hold. Michael Buffer does the introductions, the competitors make their way down to the ring. It's time for the Superbrawl VIII main event and the biggest rematch in wrestling history, according to Tony Schiavone. Sting dashes into the ring and he gets whipped with Hogan's belt. Charles Robinson's our official, by the way, not Nick Patrick. Sting gets absolutely destroyed with Hogan's weight belt, and Hogan wants Sting to tell everyone who the man is as the icon gets choked out. I don't think he can talk right now, Hollywood. Sting takes a few right hands and Hogan's making this look easy. The Stinger gets choked out on the mat. The crowd who were pro nWo all night chant Hogan sucks. And I should mention too that this crowd is a lot better and a lot louder than the Washington DC crowd at Starrcade. Hogan chokes Sting with the Stinger's own jacket before throwing him out of the ring. We get strikes at the guardrail from Hogan. We see knife edge chops and more right hands. Sting takes an atomic drop and he gets sent into the ring post and guardrail, and our security guy here's having the time of his life, it seems. Back in the ring, Hogan locks hands with Sting, and again he wants Sting to tell everyone who the man is. The Stinger rises to his feet though and he begins overpowering the Hulkster, but a kick to the midsection puts Sting back down, and Hollywood ends up bringing Sting to the corner for a few knee strikes. Hollywood performs a corner clothesline. Sting takes a body slam and a few elbow drops. Hogan thinks he's got it all figured out, but the Stinger stands up. He screams at Hogan as the nWo's leader backs up in the corner, and the crowd lose their minds when Sting goes on offense. Hulk gets his head rammed into the top turnbuckle and Sting performs an atomic drop. Sting then removes Hogan's belt and it's time for some payback. Hogan gets whipped so badly that he decides the world title isn't worth it and he tries to run away. He screams, "I'm sorry," as Sting wraps his belt around his neck and he brings him back to the ringside area. Hogan then gets dumped over the guardrail and the fans are going apeshit here, so a quick decision's made to get Hogan back over. It was all going so well for the Stinger, but he misses a Stinger splash and he hits hard on the steel. This match is already way better than Starrcade, and yes, I know Starrcade 97 was more prominent and more important. I'm not saying this is a 5-star classic either, but the crowd are so much more into it, and even the competitors seem way more comfortable with each other. Anyway, Sting takes a chair shot and Hogan whips Sting one more time before putting his belt back around his waist. Hogan then bites Sting in the forehead, but immediately afterwards we see a Stinger splash and Sting applies the death lock. Hogan's too close to the ropes. He reaches out, but Charles doesn't break the hold. I mean, I'm guessing this is no DQ, seeing as every rule's already been broken, but it wasn't advertised as no DQ. Sting releases the hold anyway, and he goes for another Stinger splash, and that's when the referee gets wiped out. Hogan floors Sting with a clothesline, and we see Nick Patrick hitting the ring as Hogan performs his leg drop. Hogan covers Sting, and the Icon kicks out at 2. Hogan looks at Patrick as if to say, "Are you fucking kidding me, bro?" before attacking Sting again. Patrick tells Hogan to ease up. Hollywood won't listen, so Patrick grabs the little hair that Hogan has and he pulls him away from the Stinger. Nick says, "You're gonna follow the rules tonight, mister." And Hogan has no choice but to go back and try to end the match. Hulk performs a back suplex, he only gets 2 again. He tries to cover Sting multiple times, but Sting digs deep and he keeps kicking out. He stands up and the two end up in a knuckle lock. Hogan gets the better of Sting here and Hogan stomps on Sting's hands. Hogan continues to get frustrated with Nick Patrick calling this thing down the middle. It goes outside again for some more guardrail action. Sting turns it around before the two get back inside the ring, but a low blow brings Sting to the mat and Patrick threatens to disqualify Hogan. Schiavone says it's been basically anything goes tonight, so it doesn't really matter. Hogan throws punches to Sting's back and Sting no-sells. Punches to the head have no effect either. The Stinger gets all fired up and here we go again. 2 Stinger splashes leave Hogan completely stunned. Sting goes for the Scorpion Death Drop, but Hulk kicks Nick Patrick while taking the move and we have no referee. Here come the troops. The nWo try to attack Sting, but Sting fights them off. And while all this was going on, Macho Man Randy Savage hits Hogan with a spray can before leaving the ring. With the ring cleared, Sting covers Hogan and the roof comes off the Cow Palace when Sting becomes the undisputed heavyweight champion. He notices someone left a spray can in the ring, so he sprays WCW on Hogan's chest. He takes the belt from JJ Dillon and yeah, again, leagues better than Starrcade. It wasn't a brilliant main event or anything, but it exceeds the low expectations I'm sure many fans had. So Sting's the world champion once again. It's going to be interesting seeing how Hulk Hogan deals with the Macho Man Randy Savage. I thought Super Brawl VIII was a good pay-per-view. Mongo vs Bulldog and Luger vs Savage were pretty bad, and I know some would complain about the Outsiders tag team match, but I enjoyed the holy shit factor involved in Scotty turning on Rick. Booker T had a fantastic night. DDP vs Benoit was good. Jericho vs Hoovy was also good. Yeah, this was a fun WCW pay-per-view, and I'd say it was better than both Sold Out and WWF No Way Out. Give this one a watch when you get a chance, and don't be put off by the main event because of Sting vs Hogan at Starrcade. You'll have fun with it if you take it for what it is. That's going to do it for this one though, guys. Next up on the WCW calendar, we have Uncensored 1998, and we'll check that one out in a few weeks' time. Thanks for watching everyone, and take care.